I used to think I had it all. A loyal partner, a stable routine, a quiet life that anyone on the outside would call perfect. We had been together for nearly 7 years. He was steady, predictable, safe. We talked every morning over coffee, shared weekend groceries, even laughed sometimes, but the laughter had become hollow. I couldn't remember the last time I felt seen. Not just noticed, but seen. There was a comfort in the routine, yes, but also a slow suffocation. He had stopped asking how I felt. I had stopped answering questions he no longer asked. Then one day, I met someone. It wasn't dramatic. No grand entrance. Just a casual run-in at the printer in my office building. He said, "You always look like you're about to disappear into your thoughts." I smiled out of politeness, but his words stayed with me. The next time I saw him, he asked if I ever stopped working. I told him I didn't know how. He laughed and said, "That's what I figured." It wasn't flirting, not at first. It was curiosity. A different kind of attention. When he looked at me, it felt like he was trying to solve a puzzle, not just pass time. I told myself it was harmless. People connect in small ways every day. It doesn't mean anything. But it did. Because I remembered everything he said. Every glance, every question. My mind lingered on him during long elevator rides and dull dinners. I tried to ignore it. I went back to my routine, cooked the same meals, folded the same laundry, asked the same tired questions at night. Did you sleep well? How was your day? The answers were always the same. Fine. Long silence. Then scrolling. Then sleep. One night I caught myself checking my phone not for messages from my partner, but hoping for a notification from someone else. A name I barely knew was beginning to matter too much. He didn't disappoint. "You seemed miles away today," the message said. My heart raced. I replied before I could think. Maybe I was. After that, the distance between me and my partner grew without either of us addressing it. And the space between me and this stranger, it shrank fast. Every word from him felt intentional. He noticed when I wore my hair different, when I seemed tired, when I said too little. I told him things I hadn't said out loud in years. About how I felt invisible in my own home. How routine had become a cage. He listened, really listened. Said things like, "You deserve to feel alive." And then he said, "Come with me sometime. Just for a drive. I know a place." That was the first time he mentioned it, not directly, but enough to leave a mark. The warehouse. I didn't ask questions. I just said, maybe. But even as I typed it, I knew it wasn't a maybe. It was a yes waiting for a time. The texts became daily, then hourly, then constant. What started as check-ins turned into confessions. He'd ask how I was feeling, and I'd answer, without filters. I told him when I felt unwanted, when I felt overlooked. He replied with things like, "That would never happen if you were mine." I'd freeze reading those words, then reply anyway. I stopped caring about the line. Maybe I already crossed it the moment I responded. I didn't tell anyone. I started locking my phone. I deleted notifications before they lit up the screen. I laughed at my partner's jokes while reading another man's compliments under the table. I smiled through dinners I was mentally absent from. He started to notice. He asked if I was tired. I nodded. He didn't push. That hurt more than anything. The other man, he kept pushing. In the best way. He'd ask things like, "What makes you feel most alive?" I didn't know how to answer. I wasn't sure I ever did. He said, "Let me show you." I started craving the pings of his messages. I'd wake up checking my phone. Go to bed, rereading our chats. He sent voice notes once. His voice was low, calm, steady. I played them late at night with one earbud in, facing away from the man I lived with. My heart thudded harder for a voice I'd never heard in person outside polite conversation. He sent me a photo once. His hand holding a coffee. "Wish you were here." It wasn't even a sexy picture, but I stared at it for 10 minutes. I wanted to be there, wherever that was. Just not here. I started changing little things. Wearing perfume I hadn't touched in months. Choosing lipstick on days I knew I might run into him. Watching the door. Timing my lunch break. I felt ridiculous, like a teenager, but I didn't stop. He noticed everything. Said I looked dangerous. Said I looked like someone hiding fire under silence. One night, I told him I couldn't sleep. He replied instantly, "Come out. Just for a bit. I'll drive." I stared at the message for a long time. My partner was asleep beside me, breathing slow, peaceful. I felt disconnected, like I was watching someone else's life. I replied, "Where would we go?" "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere private. I've got a place." Then he said it again. "The warehouse." I asked what it was. He said, "Just a place. No one goes there. Just walls and time." It sounded stupid, but I couldn't stop picturing it. Not for what it was, but for what it could be, a space without rules, without routines, without pretending. I told myself I wouldn't say yes. I told myself I was just curious, that I needed closure, that this wasn't real. But the next time he asked, I didn't hesitate. "Tomorrow night," he said. And I said, "Send me the address." I left
used
the
to
house
think I had
without
it all.
saying much.
A loyal partner,
Said I was meeting a friend.
stable routine.
He nodded
a
without
quiet
looking
life
up.
that anyone
No
on the outside
questions.
would call
No
perfect.
suspicion. We had been
That made
together
it
for
worse.
nearly 7
A part
years.
of me wished he'd ask.
He was steady,
Just once.
predictable, but he
Safe.
didn't. We
I
talked
stepped into
every
the
morning
night
over
knowing
coffee,
full well what
shared
I was
weekend
doing.
groceries.
My hands
even
shook,
laughed sometimes,
not from
but the
fear,
laughter had
from
become
adrenaline.
hollow.
The
I
warehouse
couldn't
was
remember the
further
last
out
time
than
I
I felt
expected.
seen.
Not
Quiet
just
area,
noticed, but seen.
no lights.
There was a comfort
Just
in the
a
routine,
large building,
yes,
wide
but also
open
a
space,
slow
and
suffocation.
him
leaning
he
against
had
the door,
stopped asking
waiting.
how I felt.
I stepped
had
out of
stopped
the car,
answering questions
and
he
for
no
a
longer
second,
asked.
we just looked at each
Then
other.
one day,
No
I met
words.
someone.
We
It
didn't
wasn't
need them.
dramatic.
He led me
No
inside.
grand entrance.
It smelled like
just
dust
a casual
and old
run-in
wood.
at the printer
But
in
the
my
silence
office
felt
building.
intimate. He said,
Safe.
"You always
Like
look like
time
you're
had
about to
paused.
disappear into
I
your
stood
thoughts."
there,
I
arms
smiled out
crossed,
of
unsure.
politeness.
He
But
didn't
his words
rush.
stayed with me.
Just watched
The next
me,
time I saw
like
him,
he was waiting
asked
for me
if
to
I
move
ever
first.
stopped working.
I didn't. I told him.
So he walked over
I didn't know
close,
how.
slow. He laughed.
You came,
and said,
he said.
That's
I
what
nodded.
I figured. I almost
It
didn't.
wasn't flirting,
I not at
whispered.
first.
But you did.
It was curiosity.
I didn't answer.
A different kind of attention.
I couldn't.
When
The
he looked at
space
me,
between us
it
narrowed.
felt like he was trying to
His
solve a
hand
puzzle,
brushed mine,
not just pass
my
time.
heart thudded.
I told myself
so
it was
loud.
harmless.
I thought he could
People
hear it.
connect in
I didn't
small
pull
ways
away.
every day.
I wanted this.
It doesn't mean
I hated that
anything,
I wanted this,
but it did.
But I
because
did.
I remembered
He moved
everything
closer,
he said,
and the tension
every
cracked.
glance.
I
Every
kissed
question.
him first.
My mind lingered on
Fast.
him during long
Desperate.
elevator rides
Like,
and bell
I was
dinners.
afraid of changing
I
my
tried to
mind.
ignore it. He
I went back to
responded
my
without
routine,
hesitation.
cooked the same
Hands,
meals,
lips, heat,
folded the same
like
laundry,
we'd been waiting months.
asked the same
maybe
tired
longer.
questions at night.
I didn't think.
Did you sleep well?
I didn't want to.
How was
Thinking
your day?
belonged to my
The
other
answers
life.
were always
This
the
was
same.
something else.
Fine.
He whispered
Long
things into
silence.
my ear. Then
Not
scrolling.
sweet.
Then
Not
sleep.
romantic.
One night I
Honest.
caught myself checking
Raw.
my phone,
He
not
said
for
I
messages
looked like
from my
someone
partner,
who'd been
but
holding
hoping
back
for a
years.
notification from
He
someone
said I
else.
felt real.
A name I
didn't
barely
even know
knew
what that
was
meant,
beginning
but
to matter
it
too
made me
much.
grip him harder.
He didn't disappoint.
I didn't feel like myself.
You seemed miles
I
away
felt
today.
new.
The message
Dangerous.
said. My heart
Alive.
raced.
I
I
lost track
replied
of
before I
time.
could think.
There were no clocks.
Maybe I was.
Just stolen
After
breaths,
that,
and the
the
sound of
distance
our
between
hearts
me
pounding
and my
like they were
partner
trying to
grew,
outrun
without
something.
either of us addressing
And
it. Maybe
and
they
the
were.
space between me
Maybe we
and
both
the stranger.
were.
It
At
shrank
one
fast.
point, he pulled back.
Every
and
word
looked at
from
me
him felt
really
intentional.
You sure
He
about
noticed
this?
when I
He
wore my
asked.
hair different. It was too
When
late
I
for that
seemed
question.
tired.
I didn't
When I
answer.
said too little.
I kissed him again.
I told him things I
After.
hadn't said out loud
We
in
sat in
years.
silence.
About how
The
I
air
felt
thick
invisible
with
in my
everything we
own
didn't
home.
say.
I
How
thought about my
routine
partner
had become a
about the
cage.
couch. He listened,
The quiet
really
dinners.
listened.
The
Said
way we
things
stopped
like,
trying.
You deserve
And I thought
to
about
feel
how
alive.
easy it had been to let go.
And then he
Too
said,
easy.
Come with
He
me
offered
sometime.
to drive me back.
Just for a drive.
I said no.
I know a place.
I needed a minute alone.
That was the first
He
time
nodded
mentioned
and
it.
didn't push.
Not directly,
Before
but
I
enough
left,
to
he
leave a
said,
mark.
This
The
doesn't have
warehouse.
to end here.
I didn't ask
I
questions.
didn't reply.
I just
didn't
said,
know what I wanted it to
maybe.
be.
I
But
only
even
knew
as
what
I
it
typed
wasn't.
it, I knew it
Forgettable.
wasn't a maybe.
As I drove
It was
away,
a yes waiting
the
for a
silence
time.
in the car
The text
screamed
became
louder
daily.
than anything.
Then hourly.
I had crossed the
then
line.
constant.
Fully. What started
Finally.
as check-ins
And
turned into
I wasn't
confessions.
sorry. Not
He'd ask
yet.
how I was feeling.
The morning after
and
felt
I'd
too
answer.
quiet. Without
I woke up
filters.
next to him like
I
nothing
told him
had
when
changed.
I felt unwanted.
But everything
when
had.
I felt
He
overlooked.
made coffee.
Asked
He
if
replied
I
with
wanted
things
toast.
like,
I
that
nodded,
would never happen
pretending
if you
to
were
be
mine.
half asleep.
I'd freeze
Inside,
reading those words.
I was wide
then
awake.
reply, anyway.
I replayed
I
every
stopped
second
caring
of
the
the
night
about the line.
before. Maybe
Every
I already
word,
crossed it the
every
moment I
touch.
responded.
I wondered if
I
he
didn't
could tell
sense the
anyone.
shift in me.
I started
If my
locking my
guilt had a
phone.
scent. I deleted
If it clung to my
notifications
skin,
before they lit up
he
the
kissed
screen.
my forehead
I
before
laughed at
leaving
my
for
partner's
work.
jokes,
Like
while
always,
reading another man's
I
compliments
stood there in the
under
kitchen
table.
long after the door
I
closed,
smiled through dinners
holding
I
my
was
mug,
mentally absent
hands
from.
trembling
He
slightly.
started to notice.
I opened my
He
phone.
asked if I was tired.
One message.
I nodded.
Already waiting.
He didn't push.
Can't stop
That
thinking
hurt
about
more than
last night.
anything.
No emoji.
The other man, he kept
no
pushing.
drama.
In the best
Just
way.
7 words that
He'd
burned
ask things
straight
like,
through my chest.
"What makes you
I
feel
didn't
most
reply.
alive?"
I stared at
I
the
didn't know how
screen
to
until it
answer.
went dark. I wasn't
My
sure I
reflection
ever did.
stared back.
He said,
"Blank,
let me show
unreadable."
you.
I
I
moved
started
through the
craving
day
the
like a
pings of his
ghost.
messages.
Everything normal.
I'd wake up checking
Nothing
my
normal.
phone.
Go
I
to bed,
folded laundry
rereading
that
our
smelled
chats.
like his cologne.
He sent voice
I
notes
answered
once.
emails. His
I
voice was
smiled
low,
at neighbors,
calm,
but
steady.
I couldn't stop
I
feeling
played them
the
late at
difference.
night with one
Like
earbud
I was
in,
split in two, one
facing
version
away
playing
from
the role,
the man I lived
the other
with.
still back in that
My
warehouse.
heart thudded harder,
fingertips
for a voice
still
I'd
tingling.
never heard
He
in person
messaged again
outside
that
polite
afternoon.
conversation.
"You okay?"
He sent me a
I
photo
typed,
once.
erased,
His hand
typed
holding
again.
a coffee.
Fine.
Wish you were here.
Just thinking.
It wasn't even a sexy
He didn't
picture,
push,
but I
maybe he
stared at
knew.
it for 10 minutes.
Maybe he was thinking too.
I wanted to be there.
Later that evening,
wherever that
my
was.
partner sat next
Just
to me on
not
the couch.
here.
I
The
started
same spot
changing
where
little
we
things.
always ended our days.
Wearing perfume,
He
I
was
hadn't
scrolling
touched
through his
in
phone,
months.
one leg
choosing
tucked
lipstick
under the
on
other.
days I
He looked
knew
over
I
at
might
me
run
and
into him.
said,
Watching
"You've
the
been
door.
quiet today."
Timing my lunch
I
break.
shrugged.
I felt
Tired.
ridiculous, like a
He
teenager,
nodded like
but I
that
didn't
was
stop.
enough.
He
Like it
noticed
made sense.
everything. And
Said
that's when
I
I
looked
felt
dangerous.
not guilt.
Said I
but
looked like
distance.
someone hiding
a canyon
fire
between
under
us
silence.
that neither of us
One
bothered
night,
to cross
I
anymore.
told him I couldn't
realized
sleep.
we hadn't
He
touched all
replied
day.
instantly. Not a hand
out.
on the back.
Just
not
for
a
a bit.
brush of arms.
I'll drive.
Nothing. I
We
stared
were
at the
two people
message for a
playing
long
house,
time,
surrounded
my
by
partner was
familiar
asleep
things
beside
and
me,
fading feelings.
breathing slow.
I checked my
peaceful.
phone once more.
I felt
No
disconnected,
new messages.
like I was
Just the
watching someone
last one
else's
sitting
life.
there.
I replied.
I reread it again.
Where would we
Can't
go?
stop thinking about last
Somewhere
night.
quiet. I didn't know what to
Somewhere
do with it.
private.
I didn't
I've
know what
got
to
a
do with
place.
me. Part of
Then
me
he
wanted
said
to
it again.
confess. The
To
warehouse.
rip the bandage off
I
and
asked what
face
it whatever
was.
would come. He said.
Another part wanted
Just
to
a
bury
place.
it, pretend it
No
was
one
just
goes
a moment.
there.
Just
a break in
walls and
reality.
time.
Nothing more.
It sounded stupid,
but it wasn't nothing.
But I couldn't stop
It
picturing
changed
it.
how I saw
Not
everything.
for what it was.
It showed
but for
me
what
what
it
I'd
could
been
be.
missing. A
What
space
I'd
without
let fade.
rules.
What
Without
I'd given up
routines,
pretending
without
I didn't
pretending.
need.
I
told
looked at
myself
the man
I
beside
wouldn't
me
say yes.
and tried to feel
I told
something.
myself I
Warmth,
was just curious.
anger,
That I
love,
needed closure.
anything.
That this
But
wasn't real.
all I felt was distance.
But the next time he
And
asked,
when I
didn't
finally picked
hesitate.
up my phone again,
Tomorrow night,
I didn't
he
type
said.
anything.
And I
I didn't
said,
reply. Send me the
I
address.
just stared at that message until the screen dimmed again. Then I whispered to no one, "What now?" And I meant it.